This week, we're joined by Tim Reed, owner of ETC Fit, and Dan Mee, owner of MeFit, and they join me on a panel at PerformX, and they dive into how they've built their business, their community, so they have high levels of retention, high levels of sales, and high levels of profit in their business. We hope you enjoy this episode.
This episode is brought to you by Stride DNA, the DNA testing service that helps coaches, PTs, and gym owners take their client programming to the next level. Ever wondered why some clients thrive on certain workouts while others burn out? It all comes down to genetics. Stride DNA gives you science-backed insights into how your clients respond to training, recover, and process nutrients, so you can tailor workouts, refine diets, and optimize recovery for faster results. It's not just game-changing for clients, it's an easy additional revenue stream for your business. Offer DNA-driven coaching as part of a premium package or earn commission on test kits. It's quick, simple, and Stride gives you all the tools and education you need. The best part, it's quick and easy. Your clients take a swab, send it off, and in days, you'll be able to implement the change they need to thrive in their fitness journey. So if you want to future-proof your coaching, get real results, and boost your revenue, visit getstride.com today.
It would be good to start off with a bit of an intro. So Tim, can you give everyone an intro in terms of the business name, the model, the price point, number of clients that you're currently working with, please?
Hello. Firstly, you didn't tell me this was going to be a podcast, so you've done me there. So my name's Tim. Our facility is called the Empowerment Training Center. We run a 12-to-1 group coaching model, and we have 255 active members currently.
Amazing. And what's the average yield of each customer?
That's a difficult question. So we've just kind of recently changed our price point over the last kind of 18 months, but our average yield across the board is £181.
Nice, amazing. And the reason I told you as a podcast just now is because now you have to keep it PG, basically, Tim. Dan, let's move on to you. Model, price point, number of clients, and a bit of an overview of the business.
Yeah, cool. Hello, everyone. Yes, my name's Dan. My business is MeFit. We run a 6-to-1 model currently. There is thoughts of changing that very slightly to 8, but currently we run a 6-to-1 model. We currently have around about 240 members, about 25 to 30 on a trial, so probably 265, 270 sort of active users. Current average yield is £208 from January. Same as Tim, though, we're on a journey at the moment to increase that average yield. So I'd like to think by mid to end of this year, it'll be sitting more around the 240 to 250 mark. But currently, it's just under £210 average.
Perfect. So let's kick things off with product and retention. So both of you have excellent retention within your gym. So Tim, could you share like what the monthly attrition rate is percentage-wise within your gym?
Yeah, so before I say this, like it sounds really good. And I would hate everyone to listen to what I say and go, oh my God, they're clearly amazing. We are going through a good period, a good kind of 8 months, 12 to 18 months. So our current retention is it's 2.98%, so just shy of 3%, which is pretty good, I think.
Yeah, similar for us. So this year it's sat at about 2.6. Throughout the last year, it was 2% average across the 12 months of 2024.
And the reason I wanted to start here is fundamentally the attrition rate is a key factor to their growth and success because if their attrition was double, they would have significantly less clients, significantly less revenue and profits inside their business. So, but we spoke about marketing yesterday on stage, but this is such an important factor for every gym owner to have, keep it tight when it comes to their attrition rates. And Tim, what would you say you've done that has impacted the business to have the attrition rates where they are? Like, what are the efforts you put into the business to keep it at that level?
I mean, there's so much that we try to do deliberately, and I think one of the most unsexy reasons why our retention over this last year has been so good is we've actually increased our prices for new members quite considerably. I genuinely believe that amongst some of the other reasons why our retention over the last 18 months has been so good, because of the contrast of, well, if I leave, if I come back, I'm going to be paying £60, £80 more, and I feel like that has made a lot of our current membership stay longer.
So there's two things I want to dive into there, because there's the price increase, which means that current members are appreciating the value of what they're receiving. But would you also say that the people that are paying more actually appreciate the product more, and that will actually attribute to retention also?
Absolutely. We've found with the members that are paying more money, and obviously you would expect this to happen, right? But we found that they're much better members. And because we've already got a really good foundation of people doing lots of good things, using that kind of momentum of, well, there's so many other people, they must be paying the same as me, and they all contribute positively to what we do. And that makes the whole membership base better. And ultimately, I believe our attrition is so good, our retention is so good, is because everyone says community, but genuinely, the people, if you get select golden members who then facilitate other events within your gym, you've got like points of 15, 20 people that all do the same thing, and they all stick around. They stick around for coffee, they stick around for conversations. So really trying to integrate newer members into that community as quick as possible, I believe, is one of the biggest contributing factors to making them stay for longer. And so there's a couple of points to touch on there, but just to quickly go back to the price increase and the reason why they stay. Some people might be sitting here and thinking, that doesn't really make sense. Like, if I was to raise my prices, I wouldn't be able to get customers to come in. Maybe people would leave. Why would someone stay longer if they pay more? It sounds a bit backwards, doesn't it? It does, but you just find that they appreciate what they do more. They turn up to sessions more frequently, which is a big important one. The more times you can get somebody into your facility, the more valuable they're going to find your product, because they're in more. They see it as more of a part of their lifestyle. And the more times that they come in, I think the golden number is like twice per week. I think there's some research on that. If somebody's attending twice a week, they value your product for longer. And if it's less than that, which we monitor, which we'll probably touch to how can we get people in the gym. But we find that those who are paying a little bit more, they value what we do a little bit more. It's slightly more premium. They turn up, they engage in what we do, and they just seem to be better clients. So because they pay more, they show up more because they've made an investment and they want to make sure they use it. Because they show up more, there's more touch points. Because there's more touch points, provided the service is good, they end up engaging more and becoming part of that community, which you mentioned there also. Is that a fair assessment there? Absolutely. And then you also look back and think, oh, why didn't we charge this at the start? But equally, we've also invested a lot of money in our facility way before those members who've still been with us like 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It wasn't what it is now. So now what it is now is this is what it is because look how good it is. And then I think it comes full circle. And so Dan, you've also had a similar experience as well, where you've raised your prices, but you did it for all members across the board. Is that correct?
Yeah, so when we changed our pricing structure for new clients, we also changed it for existing clients. Not quite to the same level, but we increased by 10, 20%. We did lose quite a few. We talked about that on the podcast that we did recently. But it was healthy for the business. We had an element of churn that we needed to get rid of some people that weren't aligned with our future vision, our values, where we were going to as a business. And I think, touching on what Tim said there, I think people they value it more and they think they've probably not got as many options to them. Whenever we've had lower price memberships, and I look back a few years ago and we had memberships at sort of 99, low hundreds, class-based memberships, like people at that level have a lot more options available to them, even in our local demographic, which is quite limited in terms of fitness, but it was still, there's a CrossFit box, there's another, you know what I mean? There's other options. So, whereas I think what we found is now that we're priced at that 250, 300 mark, like, we're the only solution at that level, and I don't think the people that we're attracting would want to drop down significantly. So I think that's what's helped us retain better. Hopefully that will make sense. So it makes you sound like the top provider in your area, is that correct? Have you also found an increase in retention because of the price point as well, like Tim said? Yeah, probably. I think I'd not really thought about that until Tim said it, but maybe that was the reason why our retention in 2024 was so good as well, because anyone who was with us prior to the price increase knew that we'd increased it for existing members, new members to a higher level. So maybe that was explained our retention as well. But I think for us, it started at the beginning of the journey. Like the long-term retention is based around who you're bringing in on the front end. And I look back at some of the clients when our attrition rate was probably more 3.5% to 4% at times in 21, 22. I look at those clients and think they were never going to stay for a long time. Like they weren't the right fit culturally. They were looking for a different solution maybe than what we were actually looking to provide. So I think it starts at the beginning as to who you're onboarding, what they're like as a person, their long-term fitness aspirations. And that's going to have a big impact on our long-term retention. And I think, Tim, you wanted to jump in, but just to summarize there,
the reason why this is so important to speak about in terms of these attrition rates is because 3 or 4% doesn't sound that bad, but compared to 2, over the space of a year, I don't want to do the quick maths on stage, but it's going to be between like 30 to 50 members less you would have in the business if your attrition was at 3 or 4.
Well, if it's at 4%, 12 months, that's 48%, isn't it? Is that right?
That's it, yeah.
So that's half your business is gone in a year.
Yeah, so it's a crazy amount. And so although we're speaking in small percentages, it's still quite a lot over the space of the year. So it's so important to focus on this element because, again, marketing the business becomes easier. Selling the business becomes easier when you don't have that pressure of so many people leaving and you can actually grow month in, month out. Tim, you wanted to add something, I believe.
I just wanted to jump on your point. I think Dan's made a really good point, actually, in terms of kind of separating your price point so then there are less options available. Like if you are the same price as a CrossFit box, nothing wrong with CrossFit. I think CrossFit's fantastic. But if you're the same and say, oh, well, that's £100, that's £100, and that's £100, well, what's the USP? But if and this is actually something that I had that moment when you were talking about it, like because we now charge more than pretty much anyone in the area, that price point then tells you something. It tells you, oh, it must be different. Like, what is it that they offer that I potentially need? And that then will help either push people away or bring people towards your business. So good point, Dan.
And without knowing any of your businesses right here, I'm going to make an assumption that most of you could definitely and should charge more for your services, but there's potentially something blocking you from doing that. And I know both of you have been in that similar position before where you're charging an amount where you feel that's a moderate and fair price, but essentially it hindered the business and the impact you could create. So for anyone that maybe wants to make a pricing change but has some internal resistance, what piece of advice would you give to everyone in the crowd? I'll start with Dan and then go to Tim.
So I think firstly, I would make sure that you know why you're doing it. Don't just increase your prices for the sake of it. Like you need to plan and analyze, like what does my business look like at the current price point? How many members do I need to hit the revenue target that I have to hit the level of profitability? Like you always have to work back from where you're looking to get to. And I think we were guilty of that initially. We didn't forecast well enough. We didn't plan for the future. We just were in the here and now doing what we felt was right. But we realized sort of mid-2023 that actually the path that we're on with the pricing point that we have in place right now doesn't facilitate our long-term goals and ambitions. So I would start there, like where am I actually looking to get to? And then how many members do I need or how many trials do I need to sell? There's so many different factors rather than just singular price. But yeah, I think for us there was definitely a fear around, I'm sure you've all experienced it, whatever you sell in terms of membership, front end, back end, like you get told by people on the phone, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. You build up this narrative in your head that you are expensive. And it took us to really challenge that by going even further ahead with our front end sale to make us think actually there are plenty of people around who will pay more and who will value it more. So I think it's just an internal belief that you have around your price point and just knowing that you're worth it, valuing yourself and your team and your product and your service. And then once you start selling it, you'll realize that, yeah, like Tim said, we should have done it a long time ago. I mean, our 4-week intro now is twice the price that it used to be ever since our beginning, really. So for 6 years, we sold our 4-week trial at $149. We now sell it at $297, so it's double. And we sell just as many, if not more, no more increase in sales resistance or objections. So I think people don't know what it used to be. They just know what you're pitching them. And if you've got strong sales and you can sell well to people, then I think you can sell at a much higher rate than you probably are currently.
And before we move on to Tim, that's such a key point. Double the price point, same amount of sales that were made. Most people think if I raise my prices, I won't make as many sales, when actually the volume was exactly the same because people didn't actually know the difference. And it depends on the value of how they perceive the value of what you offer and the problem that you have. Tim, your piece of advice.
I think it's important to note that there will always be resistance. Like doing a price increase is never easy, and maybe there's people in the industry who can do it easily and good for them. I find it really hard, and I think it ultimately comes down to like a deep-rooted self-belief of what you believe you're worth, and it's really easy to say, oh, just apply logic, because if this costs this and this costs this and we want to invest this much, it's easy to come to that conclusion of what you need to do, but the emotional part of it is hard. But I think Dan has hit the nail on the head, is looking back at Where do I want to take the business? What do I want from this place? How can I create the best possible experience? Well, if I'm going to create the best possible experience, I'm going to need more money. Where do we get that money from? And I think as myself, as like a broker, or I try to at least. I get money, and I go, where is that money distributed to create the best possible experience? Do I need to invest in the team? Do I need to invest in sales? Do I need to invest in our branding? Do I need to invest in our members, or whatever it might be? So I try my best to think of what we need to do, and then work back a price point, reverse engineer, I think is the word of 2022, to figure out what we need to do and what we need to charge to help us get to where we want to get to, using as much logic as possible, and then deal with the emotional side. And also, it's never as bad as what you think it's going to be. You always think it's going to be the worst thing ever, and it actually isn't, but we're great at that as humans. We catastrophize everything, and actually, it's probably not.
Amazing. Final point before we move on from pricing and retention and kind of move on to the next section of the business. And this is something that someone else said to me, and I'm borrowing it from them, which was they said, imagine your best client. Imagine the person that's transformed the most physically, mentally, their life's changed. If you were to turn around to them and say, hey, if I give you $2,000 and you could go back to how you were, would you take the money? And most of the time they would just say no, because they don't want to go back to that state of feeling, whether that's physically, mentally, energy-wise. And that's a really nice way to think of it. If you all think about that one best client whose life you've transformed, and you were to ask them that question, would they take the money to go back to the state they were in? And most of the time, I guarantee the answer would be no. So moving on from pricing, Tim, you mentioned about community as well. And something that I thought was really interesting is you said you have a community, and there's things that you do to actively promote the community, but now you've got people within the community creating events without you creating events. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have kind of like we've done lots of different things. We initially ran like an ambassador program, which we kind of do unofficially now. We put an official title to it, and that was we picked 5 gold members who loved the gym, breathed our values, and we basically said, hey, we're going to give you a free membership or a 50% off membership if you wear our stash, do our things, turn up to our events, and tell everyone how great we are with social media. And they were like, sick, of course we will. We love the gym. So that then helps gain momentum. I'm sure everyone does now, but we started run clubs first. I'm telling you, yeah? We've been doing a run club now for like 5 years, and we get our members to run it, and they get perks from doing so, whether it's free stash and discounted memberships. But what we do is we basically ask members to like do things for us. Members that you know you've got a good relationship with, and be like, hey, we're doing this event. We really want you to come. Can you like tell your mates that we're going to do it? And if you do, I'll give you a knocko or something. And they're like, sound, okay. And it just drives people, monkey see, monkey do. People love people. People love, I tell you what, here's the best example. We were going to remove one of our sessions at 8 o'clock because it was quiet. And one member was like, but I love that class. It's the only class that I can come before work. And I said, fine. Well, you fill it up, and I will not remove it. It is the busiest, most consistent session across our whole timetable. And now we're adding more of that same session because that person was like, I'm going to get that full. In the group, every day, she goes, who's going to join the best session of the week? Come and join me. I'm going to be there. I'll give you a cornetto. She actually brings cornettos in. And now that session's full. And that has nothing to do with us because I believe, even though I try to be as human as possible, we're still coaches, members who probably can't relate to us. But I don't know who your demographic is, but ours is a little bit older. If you've got a 52-year-old woman handing out cornettos telling you to come to a class, it's like, it's relatable. I'm going to be part of that. She takes a picture after the end of every session and uploads it. Everyone loves it. So it's about empowering the people to do things on your behalf with their best interests.
So there's 2 key points there. Number 1 is utilizing these members to actually fill up those quieter times within sessions. So I hear this from pretty much every gym owner. I've got quiet times in the day. How do I fill them up? That's an answer of how you can actually do that. Number 2 is what Tim just described there, is creating advocates within your gym. Can you create people that are going to be ambassadors to your brand inside and outside the gym? So at FMA, we call that the strategy, the human billboard, where you pick 5 super influential influential people within your community who have outreach within the local area, and you ask them in exchange for potentially free membership, can you post on social media? Can you actively speak about us? Can you wear our branding out and about? And again, this is such a great grassroots strategy to bring more referrals into your business from the people that love your service. No one's going to sell the service better than raving fans, and Tim's doing an excellent job of that. Dan, your members are currently embarking on a journey. So speaking of community, can you quickly kind of run through what they're doing, why you've decided to do this as well?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago now, one of our coaches who's big into adventure holidays and loves exploring, and he did Everest Base Camp like just before he started working with us. He suggested we do like an adventure club. So every sort of like 2 years, they do a pretty big holiday trip. So 2 years ago, they climbed Kilimanjaro, him and 20 members. And then just today, actually, Tommy, the coach, and Jess, one of our other team members, are going to Costa Rica for 2 weeks on like, again, similar sort of adventure sort of holiday. So we have like one big event every 2 years that we do, and then throughout the year just sprinkle in little events. We've actually pulled back a little bit on it. I think last year we had too much going on, and it was too hard to. There was always something. It was like every month, every couple of weeks, there was something. It was just relentless, and it was too much. So what we've done this year is we tried to focus on having one bigger community event every quarter, and then if people create little events here and there, then great. But we just kind of have one event every quarter, but then obviously every 2 years there's a big. So the next one I think is going to be like a big trip to Canada. That's what everyone voted for. So that'll be like 2027's. Big adventure trip.
Awesome. So we've spoken about retention, what these guys do to keep people on board, to keep them bought into the process. But another factor of how to keep people on board for a long time is how you welcome them into your gym. So what would be really great is, Tim, can you tell me what your front end offer is, how much it costs, and currently the conversion rate of how many people will go onto that long-term membership to be embedded into the community?
So we currently run a 6-week onboarding. Also, I totally stole your Kilimanjaro trip idea. He did it, then I did it the year after. That's a great idea. So we charge $279 for 6 weeks. It was $397 in January, and we went with what seems to be working. We went with like a sports direct approach. You know, when you overcharge and then say, we got a deal for you. We started $397, and now we charge. So for this month, it's actually $279, which is actually what we were doing, but we're making so many sales that it's now $279. And our retention this month is 100%, which sounds amazing.
Wow.
But we've only had 5 conversions, so it's 100% of 5. In March, we've got like 30 trialists coming towards an end, so I'll be able to give you some real good data. But in the last quarter, our conversion was 60%, which isn't as good as it could have been, but there's reasons for that, and we suspect that in March, April time, we're going to be pushing towards that 70-75%.
Amazing. And Dan, how about you?
Yeah, so we run a 4-week trial. $297 is the price point currently. Conversion, we always aim for 70%, but I try not to get too bogged down with any individual metric, because I think we all get a bit of an ego boost when we hit 100% retention. But if you're retaining 100% of 2, I'd still prefer to retain like 50% of 30. Do you know what I mean? So like, we do look at our conversion. We're not saying the 100% of 5 is obviously great.
That's why I said it. That's why I had to pre-frame it. I didn't just say 100% and then sit back. Otherwise,
we've always aimed for 70%, but I'm willing to see that be lower if we've sold more, because I think the quality and the interactions probably will drop a little bit. But we've always aimed for 70%. We know that if we hit sort of 15 sales at 70%, maintain our attrition sort of 2 to 3%, that's going to hit our targets. If we perform better, great. If we sell more, I'm happy for the conversions to drop a little bit, because obviously we've got more people coming through. So net member growth, I think, is fundamentally what we're aiming towards.
And
you know?
Yeah, and so when that person comes in initially for their 6-week or their 4-week trial, it's really important that we get those guys bought into the process, but also the community as quickly as possible. So is there anything in particular that you do to get people bought in that attributes to that high overall conversion rate?
I'll go first on that. I actually don't think that in that 4 weeks, community is a big part for us, because I don't think people really care about community at that point. I can't remember the last person who joined us because they wanted to join a community. Like most people join a fitness business because they want to lose weight, they want to tone up, they want to have more energy, they want to have less pain. There's loads of different factors, but it's sort of individual reasons for them. So our 4 weeks isn't really about community at all. It's about, we do an onboarding session. This isn't anything new, I don't think. We do an in-body scan, we do a movement screening, we talk about their goals, we try and get to know them as much as we can, and then within the 4 weeks, we just try and deliver the best service we can in terms of the coaching, in terms of the touch points, just showing that we actually care about them, that we've got their best interests at heart, that we want to see them progress with their health and fitness. And then it's later on, I think, down the line that the community side of it starts to become more relevant in our experience anyway. You know, and if they can start to build a community of typically within the sessions that they attend, if they someone who comes at 8 a.m., they get to know those people, and then that next level of why they stay longer term kicks in a little bit further down the line. That's my experience on it.
Yeah, there's a phrase, you know, called "come for the content, stay for the community." So people come for a reason, and a lot of the time it's not the community, but that is why they stay later on down the line. They want to be part of the group there. Tim, have you thought of an answer, or?
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with Dan. People stay for community. We try to front end that community feel. I think that is one of the major contributing factors that keeps somebody. And I think people think that the gym is quite a lonely place. It's quite an intimidating place. The people that we attract have probably tried a normal gym or a gym system and have been let down. Not saying that commercial gyms are bad or anything, but you've got to find what works for you. For us, how we structure our sessions, it's almost like a bit of a buddy system. Like you'll work with one other person and you'll have like a rack and your own kettlebells and your own barbells. And then people will start talking and communicating with each other. And we try to personality match who's going to get on with that person more. So they've kind of like found a friend. And then we encourage that behavior by being like, oh, Lex, this person's new, it's their first session. And then they've found a friend, which is almost unheard of in a gym, because the perception in the most cases that gyms aren't friendly. I actually don't think that's true, but I think the perception is that gyms aren't friendly. So we want to double down on that friendliness and try and integrate them into the community, into how we do things as quick as possible, whilst also showing that we care, whilst also trying to deliver an exceptional service.
We do that within our sessions as well. I wasn't really thinking in terms of the actual sessions themselves, but yeah, that's fundamentally the same as us. Like we'll introduce someone as being new to the group. We know that our long-term members will always go out of their way to try and welcome them, and they'll know how they felt at that point in time in their journey. So we certainly do a lot of what Tim just said there, pair people up with people who are going to resonate with them. They're going to have a sort of similar goals, similar challenges, similar strength levels, fitness levels, etc. So yeah, within the session day to day, there's certainly a lot of that goes on.
Amazing. Now, time flies. We've got about 15 minutes left. So I want to interject to see if anyone has any questions based on what they've said so far. We've got a question just in the bottom left corner there. So if we can run over and give the mic. And then once we have no more questions, I'll go back to mine unless we run out of time. We haven't even scratched the surface, and we're already half an hour in. Time literally does fly on these panels.
Yeah, thanks. My name's Sam. Just going back to the attrition rates and stats around that sort of aspect, because it's hard for you guys to answer now because you're probably operating at near capacity. But at the earlier stages, what was your typical growth rate on a month-by-month basis on average?
What's interesting about that question, it's a great question, by the way, is the percentage doesn't really change. But if you've got 5% of 50 members, it's like, oh, sweet, you only need to replace like one person a month. But when you're dealing with 250, that 5% is a lot more. In terms of a growth rate, it fluctuates depending on, you know, that army term is that you fall back onto the level of your training. With a gym, you'll fall back onto the level of your systems and what is then required for the next stage of growth. Like, you can have 50 members by not having a timetable, by not having a booking system, by not really having a program, just being a good person and have a bit of fun. You can get 50 members, but what you did then will not get you to the next step. So it'll stop because you might find 50 people in your community who love what you do, but you won't find 100. So what you have to then do to go to the next stage of growth, then you'll see a higher growth rate at this new version of yourself, and then you'll be capped again. Then you'll be like, well, what do I got to do now to get to 150? I need a CRM that's going to automate emails and schedule an onboarding service. Okay, then you invest in that. So your growth rate, I found that it isn't steady. It kind of will go, and then it'll stop. then you got to figure out the puzzle of what the hell do I need to do next to help me get to the next stage. So growth rate between 5 and 10 a month would be pretty delicious, but then that'll stop, and then you'll be losing more people than you're gaining, and you got to figure out why is that happening? What can I then do? What am I missing to help me get to the next level? Because it's all just a game, isn't it? It's a big game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of what Tim said. I think it's going to depend on the model that you run, obviously the quality of the service. There's loads of different factors, but I do think that if I didn't track our data very well in our early days, so I couldn't give you too clear of an answer on that. But I do think that if I could go back to the beginning, or hopefully when we're at a point, sort of the next 12 to 18 months, where we're looking at like an additional site, I do think you could get to 150 members pretty quickly, 200 members pretty quickly. If you can sell 20 trials a month, convert 60 to 70% of them, you should get to 200 pretty quick. I'm talking 12 months, you know what I mean? Like, if things are good quality in terms of the trainers, the community, and all of that starts to build. Maybe that's naive, maybe, I don't know.
I agree. Honestly, if someone was like, open a gym and get 100 members, I'd be like, all right then. I don't maybe I'm being naive as well, but like, having gone there and done it and learned so much throughout the process, and I think everyone thinks this, right? You wish you knew now what you knew then. And we've just made like so many mistakes, and I know I've known Dan for ages, like he's made loads of mistakes. We've both made so many mistakes and messed up, and that's where you learn from and go, okay, how can I not do that again? But yeah.
Yeah, and the reason these guys are so confident that in 12 months they could get to that milestone very quickly is, one, they know how to service, but two, they know how to market and sell efficiently, and they have the systems in place to be able to do that. I think, were you about to raise your hand for a question? Amazing, yeah.
My question is more about community. How do you keep all your members together? Do you do like a WhatsApp group, Facebook group, and what about the trials as well?
So we're still old school. We use Facebook group. It doesn't get used anywhere near as much as it used to. It used to be like, it almost used to be a selling point. Now it's like, you've got to have a Facebook group just for that. We don't use like WhatsApp. We use WhatsApp for like texting and messaging members if they don't show or whatever. But in terms of, so what do we do to help build the community? Is that what you're saying?
No, to keep the community together. Or...
While you're thinking at the second, one thing I would just mention on community, I think we all talk about this word so much. I think you've got to remember that there will be people within any fitness organization, whether that's online coaching, PT, gym membership. Some people are there for community and some people aren't. We've got a lot of members within our 230 or 40 or so who they are absolutely not with us for community. They are there to tick a box. They want to, and it's going to depend on the demographic of people that you work with, your audience, their age, all those things. But like, I think we used to make the mistake of trying to force community down people's throats. We've come to realize that if people are looking for that within their life, they will join in with things that we promote and present. If they're not interested, we'll ask them a couple of times and then we'll just stop, because that's just not what they're with us for. So I suppose that's my advice, is don't try and enforce community on people if that's not what they want. But if they do want it, they'll do it with you. Do you know what I mean?
I think we're always doing events. Like this year, I think we're hosting like a board games evening, so nothing to do with fitness. We do like an adventure club, so we go out, we go abroad, we do events. We're doing the 3 Peaks this year. Like, we are always trying to do different things to appeal to different people. Like, we got on the High Rocks bandwagon like 4 years ago, and we used that as a retention strategy because people wanted to train at High Rocks together and go towards the events. And I'm going to book in for November, but it's January, and we'd be like, we can help you get there. So that worked as one of our many retention strategies. And community is, and Dan kind of touched on this earlier, like, community only happens when people are there for a long time. Like, you can't just jump into a community and be best mates. I think you want to try and instigate it as best as possible by how you set up your sessions, by how you communicate 10 minutes pre, 10 minutes post the session. Like, meeting people together, but if you can keep people by having an excellent product that people believe in, people will talk to each other eventually, and that's when community will happen. But do things that people want to do, then people will go to them, and then the same people will start going to the same events. And they're like, oh, you went to that event, that was class. How did you find it? Oh, it was crap, whatever it might be. And that's going to help create those relationships. So I think, you know, contradictory to what I said about getting community straight away, I actually think community comes with people just being there. And why do people go there? They go there because it's good. If it's good, people will stay. If they stay, people will build connections. So have lots to offer.
Amazing. So we focused on like community, retention, and now I really want to flip, because something you said which was really interesting. You know, it's easy to get to that first 50 without not really knowing what you're doing, not really having systems in place. But if you want to get to that point of 200, 250 and larger revenue numbers and larger profits, you need to have sufficient marketing and sales systems in place. So what I really want to ask both of you guys, like, how important is it to have sufficient marketing and sales in the business, and what have you seen kind of change recently as well? We'll start with Dan, then go to Tim.
I mean, marketing is massively important. We wouldn't be where we are without marketing ourselves. I think it's a naive way to view things, and you hear business owners do this where things are tight, finances are challenging, and they think, I'll not market, I'll turn off marketing. Just worst thing you can do. You know, you need fresh blood into the business. If you're a gym, personal trainer, even online coach, like people are always going to leave. No matter how good your attrition rate is, people are always going to leave. So you need fresh blood to replace them, and you get that by marketing yourself and selling yourself. So yeah, it's hugely important. We've seen it gets harder as you get bigger and as you've been more established in the area. I mean, obviously we started working with FMA back in 2020, and the first ads we did, like, we were inundated with leads. It was crazy. We don't quite get the same lead flow now. It's steadier and it's more consistent rather than having huge peaks and huge troughs. But no, it's a hugely fundamental, important part of our business. And if you don't market yourself well enough and don't sell yourself well enough, then you can be the best gym in the world, but you'll go nowhere because no one knows. So yeah, it's big.
And quickly before we go to Tim, like, having that retention piece is massive and having a great service, but that just makes it easier for when you want to grow and is essential, because you need to have both combined together to ultimately get to where you want to go. So Tim, what are your thoughts on the importance of having sufficient marketing and sales systems?
It's literally the most important thing. And I said this to Dan earlier, when we first started, like, we got a videographer and did like a nice video of the gym, and that was all we did. And everyone was like, wow, that's incredible. Now, like, that is the absolute bare minimum standard. The standards have increased so much. I used to put a tenner behind a Facebook advert and get loads of leads because no one's running adverts. Now everybody is. Like, you have to be smart with your marketing. And like, I said this as a joke, like, marketing's like a real job. I didn't think it was a real job. Like, there actually has to be a strategy and thought behind everything that you do, which is why we outsource it as FMA. But it's a lot of work, and marketing and sales is so important, and we're in a fortunate position now that when your marketing is pretty good, you're aligned on the content that you're putting out, and you're making sales, it puts you in a really strong position to be like, hey, we're full in February. It's like how interpersonal relationships work. It's like, I'm not interested in you anymore, so then you're like, oh, but I want to be part of it. So we're in a very strong position because we use FMA, we have good marketing, and one of the best things that you're probably going to talk about is like retargeting marketing that we've used with FMA, and it's one of the best things that we've done. But having all that stuff set up is literally essential. You can't do it without it.
I showed just a screenshot of your video yesterday, the 3 most common fears that people have, which works really, really well. But just to give like the strategy of where Tim is now in terms of his positioning, he turned off his active sales marketing about halfway through February because you'd sold the intake you wanted to make in terms of to be able to service them, to retain them. And now what we've done is we're now placing scarcity and urgency for when Tim next opens his intake inside of March. So he shut his door. Like, he doesn't need any more sales in March. He's not hustling for more sales. He's got everything he needs. And he can now say to his email list, his social media followers, hey, we're full. We're not taking anyone on. Even if you try and join, you can't get in. That makes people want to be part of the community. You know, when you can't, there's a VIP area out there, there's psychology about that. But if you can't get in, you want to be in there. It's the same psychology with Tim's marketing. Now when he opens up in March, he's going to get people come straight in through that process of urgency. So it's a super strong position to be in there. So we spoke about marketing, and then does anyone have any questions, by the way, in terms of what we've spoken about? Any additional questions that you want to ask these guys at all? Perfect. No worries. Let me kind of wrap up on probably the last one or two questions that we've got. And then if you do want to speak to these guys after, feel free to. Where do you see the gym space going in the next, like in the future? Where do you think the innovation needs to happen within the business to stay relevant, to stay successful? Because where you guys are is in a really good spot, but both of you know you can't stand still. Like, for instance, your gym, you redecorated it recently, and now it looks superb in comparison to what it used to be. But when I went there, I was like, this looks pretty cool. But in comparison to what it looks like now, it didn't look so cool in comparison. So yeah, where do you guys see the innovation within this space, and what are you guys thinking about?
I mean, there's been a lot of talk on that at this event. Lots of, Ollie Patrick's yesterday on wellness. So I think obviously that side of things is definitely on the horizon. I think I'm very mindful that I don't want to get myself involved into anything that I don't really truly understand and don't, I think we want to be the best at what we do. So I don't know. I can't envisage us making any fundamental changes to what we provide. I can't see us going down the route of ice bath saunas and all of that type of thing, because I don't understand it. It doesn't resonate with me. I think the business that you have needs to be a reflection of you and what you value. But I think, touching on what you just said there about Tim's gym, I do think the level of competition is always increasing. There's independent gyms popping up all over the place. The level of sophistication of their branding, their marketing and stuff is going to increase. So if you don't improve, then you're going to get left behind. I don't think it's good enough anymore or valuable enough to just have, I remember other gym owners talked about it, even longer ago than we were, if you had a sledgehammer and a tire and all those things, like the boot camp style, like that was like innovative. Whereas now, like even new gyms that are coming into the marketplace look good and aesthetically pleasing. So I think it just needs to be at a level that reflects the price point and where you want to go as a business. So yeah, hopefully that all makes sense.
Amazing, yeah. Tim?
I agree. I think the standards of the industry are increasing. I think gyms are now looking much more aesthetically pleasing. You have to. It's difficult, right? I've got like two thoughts on this and the opposing thoughts. Like, I think you have to be the best at what you do, and you have to constantly be evolving. And I also think as an independent, you've got to be ahead of the curve. We have this amazing privileged position that we can pivot, which is a COVID word, but we can change things really quickly. Commercial gyms can't do that. How we train, what our product is, you cannot do what we do in a commercial gym because somebody nicks your rower and someone takes your dumbbells. You can't do what we do. So I think tripling down on what your service is and what your product is and using that as your USP. And on the flip side of that, I think too many people are trying to be the same, and too many people are going, oh, Tim, look at your gym. It looks great. I want that. And I'm like, well, why do you want that? Like, who is it that you serve? And look, we think we're super accessible. We're this super friendly, accessible gym, but we're still not even attracting 93% of the population. So who's serving a much bigger component of the industry? Like, I think we need to not be so similar to each other. I was having this conversation with a CrossFit owner that they're trying to copy what we do, right? And I'm like, why don't you just triple down on being a hardcore CrossFit gym and let that be your niche instead of trying to be like fluffy, like, ooh, this is what we do. I'm like, be a double hard, triple cartwheel CrossFit gym, and that's what you're really good at. Do that thing. And I think we need to see more people in like doing like step ups and like just people just doing who they're serving really well instead of trying to be like everyone else.
Amazing. So we're going to wrap up there, but just quickly, if you are interested in potentially finding out more about Fitness Marketing Agency, if you scan this QR code and book a call, you can secure a very special discount that is only at PerformX. So if you do scan that and book in a call, you can get yourself a discount. Even if you don't decide to sign up this week, this month, you still lock in that discount for later on down the line. So if you want to find out more about how you can build up your systems and build gyms, just like Tim's and Dan's, 250 members, mass revenues, mass profit, go ahead and scan that QR code there. And guys, just want to say a massive thank you for these two for spending their time. Can we give a round of applause to Tim and Dan, please?
I hope you enjoyed that episode of the FMA podcast. If you're interested in finding out more information about Fitness Marketing Agency and how we can potentially help your business, all you need to do is head over to fmademo.co. fill in a quick survey, and then we will be able to schedule a demo call. We'll show you behind the systems that we use to help over 430 plus fitness business owners right now. Head over to fmademo.co and hopefully I'll speak to you soon.